I think it's easier said than done to make a shift into the data field. But if you network really well and if you talk to the right people and just validate your assumptions around what you think data working in data will be like, you'll save a lot of hassle. Remember, your domain expertise that you're bringing with you is an asset. Just because you're not a pure data person or you don't have a data science degree, if you can show that you are willing to learn or have put in your own effort to learn some of the core basic skills within data, and you bring this extra knowledge and domain expertise and business literacy and stakeholder management skills, you're going to be an asset. You're like gold dust.
Hey nerds, Monica here. Welcome to the Data Podcast for Nerds, where we get to talk to amazing professionals and ask them all about how they're using data to solve the world's problems. We're giving all the tips, tricks, and nerdy fun bits to make you the best data professional you can be. Today with us, we have Tris Burns. How are you doing today, Tris?
I'm doing well, thank you, Monica. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for
Great.
asking. And thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes. We typically start off our episodes by understanding people's origin stories. So, if you could please tell us about your background and how you got into data.
Sure thing. So I'm originally from down under. I'm from Brisbane in Australia, but I've been living in the UK now for 10 years, so you probably have a weird accent mix going on a little bit with me. Um, I I think my data origin. So I my first well, first of all, I studied in university. I studied business and commerce. During my commerce degree, I had always wanted to go into banking for some reason, and I graduated from that my master's program during the height of the global financial crisis, which was really good timing on my behalf. I wish I'd timed that a little bit better, but none of the banks at the time were interested in hiring anybody, let alone me, who didn't, get the best grades ever. So in my town in Brisbane, pretty much everybody ends up working for resources, oil and gas, coal companies, things like that, because Australia's got a lot of that going on. So I got my first real job, I would say, like my first real corporate job, working in an oil and gas company in Australia as a business analyst. I was brought on to help build a CRM project for our investment platform, where we would go out and invest in the communities in which we were building pipelines and oil rigs and things like that. So my job then was to help liaise with all of the users and work with the engineering teams to collect the requirements and put them into technical language and business language, vice versa, to create this CRM platform. Then towards the end of that project, when we wrapped up, we realized that we had a lot of data in it that we were collecting from all of the stakeholders and all the projects that we'd been working on, and no one to analyze it. So, being the most familiar with the platform, having been responsible for being the business analyst on the project, I kind of morphed from a BA into a data analyst and became kind of the reports person for that. And that's kind of where I got started. I stayed with that role for a number of years, but then I got made redundant and decided that I think I'll move to the UK and just I was only ever planning to come for a couple of years. I moved to London, and finally, I got my first job in banking in London, working for, you'll know it, Bank of America on the trading floor in London. So that's kind of where I morphed into data.
That's awesome. Can you give us a little bit of background on what are the main differences between a business analyst and a data analyst?
Well, this is a really good question because I actually think that has changed in the years since I was a business analyst. I think that traditionally in a waterfall environment, which it was at the time, a business analyst is someone who collects requirements from business users and uh, catalogs them, describes them technically, and shares them with engineers so that engineers can go and then know what they need to build. And then we test with users and everything else like that. Um, I think the role of a business analyst traditionally wasn't actually particularly data centric because it was at the top of the waterfall where there wasn't any data. Whereas within an agile environment, you're continuously releasing, continuously collecting data. And I think business analysts, as people know them today, are a lot closer to data and need to be pretty good at analyzing and reporting and thinking in a very data centric way. Whereas that wasn't necessarily the case in my day. Where the differences lie between what we would call today a business analyst and a data analyst, I think it really comes down to the company in many ways. I think that a business analyst is probably less technically capable in terms of querying data, maybe working with databases and all of that sort of thing, but very good at understanding the business requirements and analyzing and interrogating data so that they can report back to businesses, back to business stakeholders on how things are going. Whereas a data analyst, I think, also needs to be able to do those things largely, but is perhaps less business centric and more technology centric. However, I don't believe that a data analyst should be that far from the business. These things should kind of almost be the same thing in my mind, and I think in a lot of businesses they are.
Absolutely. What do you gravitate towards more in your what you like to do personally?
I am a business centric person, I think, personally. I love working with individuals, with stakeholders. I love helping people solve business problems and using data to do so. I've never been particularly great on the technical stuff. Maybe I'm not super quick at figuring out the logic and all sorts of things, but my preference and my the area where I've kind of been drawn to has always been um, helping business users understand their business with data.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And then you finally made it into the bank industry. So how
Oh
exciting
yeah.
was that?
It was exciting for about 10 minutes until I realized what the work culture is like. So I would get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I would probably leave most nights. It would be 10:30 kind of thing, and I would have dinner at my desk, lunch, dinner at my desk, or breakfast as well on a lot of occasions. I have to say, I really enjoyed the work. So I was in an operational role that was adjacent to the fixed income trading business, and basically my role was to just punch through tons of queries into the IBM Cognos system that we used at the time to allow the traders and the salespeople to know how the business is doing, what clients are buying, what products, what how the markets are moving, and all that kind of thing. And it was you couldn't get a decimal point out of place because we're talking billions and billions of dollars in trade and data. You had to work very very quickly and very short turnaround for everything. It wouldn't be out of character to be yelled at multiple times per day by the trader, but in that environment, you have to have thick skin and just get on with it. They usually come to you afterwards and say, "Sorry, I was angry. It was the heat of the moment. We're cool now. It was just that I needed to get back to a client really quickly. Sorry about that." So yeah, I did that for a couple of years. Like I said, I really enjoyed the work. Didn't love the work-life balance because there wasn't one.
Got it. That's fair. So what do you do now? Do you have a work-life balance now, hopefully?
Yeah, definitely. I'm totally self-employed now. I think uh, throughout my career, I've kind of moved into more leadership style roles since that time. And part of being a leader in a data team and helping to build out a data team and to mentor and nurture the people on your team is a part of the job that I really, really have loved. And so, while I'm no longer employed in a company, I don't technically work in a data role anymore. What I do now is actually work one on one with data professionals and help them with leadership challenges, creating influence for themselves, being more strategic in their roles, learning how to manage down, manage across, and manage up within the business that they work for, and basically helping them to become more proficient data leaders. As
Fantastic.
a consultant slash coach, I should add, by the way, that's what I do.
Yes, perfect. What would you say are your favorite problems to solve? Do you see some trends happening in this type of work?
Yes, I do. A lot of this one isn't necessarily a trend, but I think that people in data usually come into data through the IC route, so the individual contributor route. They have loved throughout their career interrogating data, figuring out you know, technical challenges, solving problems, building dashboards, visualizations, and that kind of thing. And then a point in their career, depending on the company they work for, but they're often pushed or encouraged to go into leadership roles. A lot of them are really unprepared for it. Businesses do a terrible job of nurturing IC talent into leadership. And in many cases, they promote their most capable, most senior ICs into leadership roles wholly unprepared. So that's something I really like to help those people with because it's a whole new world for them. They're suddenly having to dedicate time to looking after individuals on their team. They're having to dedicate time to thinking more strategically. They're having to liaise with business stakeholders they didn't previously liaise with and know. They lack, in many instances, uh, literacy around business as well. So helping them solve those sorts of problems really, really excites me. In terms of trends, a problem I'm seeing a lot lately is obviously, let's talk AI trends. Data leaders, uh, business leaders rather, are coming to data leaders and saying, we need to be competitive, we need to be doing AI, the world is changing, we need to get on top of these things. So you guys are going to have to contribute and support in that way. Obviously, data leaders are like, well, yeah, that sounds great, but we've neglected our data capability for years and years and years. Our data quality and our data governance are basically non-existent. How are we going to suddenly level up? It's not a quick thing. So they feel like they're having to say no a lot or to be difficult. And I feel sorry for them because that's a difficult one to deal with when there's so much pressure coming from every angle right now on the AI front. And the business itself just didn't have the foresight to invest and support data teams and give them the resources that they needed early on to ensure that their data was in a good state.
Yeah. So with these AI initiatives, are you seeing now with these struggles with data quality emphasis being put on, like data governance programs?
Yes, I think in some respects there are, and data governance roles have increased the number of open roles, and businesses are starting to realize that to leverage AI, they do need to invest in data governance. So I think that anyone who has some experience in data governance or would like to move into that sector, it's probably a good strategic move if you're interested in that side of things. Data quality, of course, it's very technical and hands-on, but if you enjoy that work, I would say that that's probably a smart place to be at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect transition into, say, our fun bits.
Yeah. Okay.
We talked a little bit, and I know that you have a big passion for advising folks not to start in data if you want to
Mm-hmm.
get into data. So, what's your advice? Where should you start from?
Actually, I'm quite ambivalent to where people come from. I think that uh, what we see in data so often is that people will start their career there. They'll go, oh, I want to be in data. So they'll go to university and get, computer science, data science degree. And then they'll go and say, hey, I'm a data person. Can I have a job, please? That's great. I'm all for that. I'm not against it. But if I were hiring individuals into my team, I would probably not hire someone whose background is, let's call them pure data people who don't have any other industry experience, even for a data entry role. Well, actually, I don't really believe in entry level data roles so much. I'll get into that in a second. There are two reasons why I don't think I think people should come into data from another direction. The first one is the skills required. Now, often we talk about skills in data, we're thinking about SQL and Python and data visualization. I disagree. When we're talking about skills and data, I think we're actually talking about communication, business literacy, influence, and strategic mindset. I think those are the core skills in data. Those skills take many, many years to acquire. If you can't overnight become a really good stakeholder manager, you can't overnight become super business literate. You have to have been in business. You have to have been in the trenches to have acquired those skills. Whereas this is going to get me in trouble, but SQL, if you were to do 5 to 10 hours a week of SQL training, you'd be advanced level in 3 months. Python, it would take you 4 to 6 months to be advanced level. You can do those things very quickly. You cannot acquire the other skills, which I believe are more important in the data space, very quickly. So when we go out and we hire people who have those technical skills but lack all those other skills, which I believe are more important at the end of the day, we are doing the data industry a disservice. We are creating an environment where we only care about technical capabilities and technical output. We don't care about how data is a value add rather than a cost center. We don't care about how data is a strategic driver. We care about dashboards. And I believe this is the wrong way around. So I'm highly encouraging of anyone who's been maybe, I don't know, a marketing person, a finance person, maybe a football coach, done something else and has the necessary skills, as I see them in the right order: stakeholder management, communication, strategy, business literacy, to then go and acquire data skills and become a data professional.
Yep. Yeah, I think that a lot of it does come down to problem solving. And in order to solve those problems, you need to have that domain knowledge or
Right.
knowing that the business
Yes.
literacy. And so I completely agree with that.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, domain knowledge. If you come from uh, the background that's relevant, in a non-data sense, you've come from, let's say, supply chain management, then and you start working in a data capacity within supply chain management, you're going to be light years ahead of all the other analysts who are in the supply chain data team who have no domain experience. Light years ahead, because all you've got to go and do is acquire the data skills, which I believe, comparatively, are much easier to acquire than the domain and let's call them engagement skills.
Yes, absolutely. And I know you used to work at Pizza Hut. How did that
Yeah.
help you in your data career?
So I was the global head of data for Pizza Hut's digital business outside of the United States. So we, I was the first full-time data hire. We kicked off a kind of internal startup within Pizza Hut International. It was called International at the time, which is basically all of the markets that are not the United States. Um, yeah, so I was brought in to build and scale the team, and the team's job, the whole business's job, was to scale e-commerce solutions to all of the countries in the world that used Pizza Hut. Um, I loved it. It was a fantastic job, such an exciting environment. It was very interesting to be um, in what is kind of referred to as like an entrepreneurship business, where it's not like it's a startup within a wider company. And now Pizza Hut is a very old, very established multinational, multi-billion-dollar business, and those businesses that have been around for a long time come with legacy challenges. So it's very intelligent for a business like that to say, hey, you guys over there, if we invest in you, like we're your venture capital fund, you go and do what you need to do. We're going to be hands off and not get in the way, because we're going to bring our legacy nonsense, and you build a technology that we can support, invest in, and scale. And then yeah, that will do great things for the organization, which was our goal, and which I think in many respects we achieved quite well.
That's awesome. Do
Yeah.
you find Pizza Hut's your favorite pizza?
Yeah, I think I do. Well, I like Italian proper, like Neapolitan style pizza. Obviously, is the best. But if we're comparing it with the other guys, the blue and red ones, I think Pizza Hut's better. Do you?
My favorite is actually Mellow Mushroom. I don't know if that's a
What
local
is that?
place.
Is that? Oh, that's a. Oh, okay. No, I didn't know it. I thought that
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
topping. I was like, oh my god.
Their dough is just the best dough.
All right. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna have to try it if I'm ever in town.
Yes, absolutely. I'll recommend it for sure. Do you have any fun facts that you can share about pizza that you learned at your time at Pizza Hut?
Well, what was really cool was on the first or second day of being an employee, you're not in the, we were in a WeWork, we're not in the office. They actually get you to go to a takeaway location and work there for a couple of days. So I got to go and see the whole operation of how pizzas are made, and it blew my mind because I always assumed that like these big pizza brands, that the pizza bases would just be these frozen discs, but they're not. They're proper dough, and you actually sit there and hand stretch them. I had no idea. I thought, no, no way. This is just something that comes out. They thaw it or they heat it up and then they put toppings on. But no, they go to all the effort to actually stretch out the pizzas properly. They don't know, they're not tossing them around like a pizzeria style, but
They
they do.
don't? I was going to ask, are you a professional pizza tosser now?
After 2 days, no way. No, but yeah, it was really cool. I got to see the orders come in, the way that the ticket system moves around. Part of the technology that we ended up implementing later on helped, make that system really efficient, and we were pressing buttons and like, yeah, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. It's such a cool assembly style kind of operation. It's great to
Oh,
see.
fun. So that's probably where you would recommend people start off, is in the pizza or restaurant industry.
Yes. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Actually, that's not a bad idea. If you started out in the restaurant, let's say for example, and you got to know firsthand from customers what they like, what they didn't like, the way that the kitchen works, the way that the delivery drivers all work, um, order volumes and all these kinds of things. And then you go and work on the tech and learn how to like analyze the data, and the sense of perspective that you're going to have going into that is crazy. 2 days isn't really enough. It was just kind of, a fun thing to do, and to give us a little bit of an insight. But I think the people on the front lines have got so much knowledge and so much to share. Qualitative data coming out of those guys is immensely valuable, but we don't really capitalize on that, too much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And are there ways that if you are starting off in an industry, say at Pizza Hut, are there ways that you can start building your data acumen so that you can make that transition into the data field?
Um, I will say, to be honest, the tech business that we were part of was somewhat apart from the head office and the restaurant business, but I think you can always network internally. If you are someone, no matter what your job is, let's say you're in the supply chain or you're in logistics, and you want to learn more about the data business, find your colleagues within the organization and ask them for a cup of coffee. Go and see them at their desk if you're in the same building. Jump on Teams if you're not. Find a way to pick their brain and network with them a little bit. Definitely, you can do that. You should definitely network with people before you consider a career change too, because you might not like it. You've got to hear from people who are doing that thing as to help you determine whether or not it's for you.
Absolutely. That's what I always advise people, to just find some way to use data and start just playing with it to figure out, do you even like it or not, before
Exactly.
making that
Yeah. Yeah.
transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And there's loads of ways to do that. There's lots of platforms where you can download data sets, and you can get instances for free and start building visualizations. Excel obviously is free. It's the first place most people would and should start, I would say. Um, there's lots that you can do. Do you enjoy doing this? Do you like finding information hidden within data sets? If you do, yeah, cool.
Yes, absolutely. And I know you are a kind of spreadsheet nerd in that you like to track things like your productivity
Yeah.
with macros. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. I've got quite a few going actually. I sometimes find myself like setting them up really nicely and then neglecting them. Like the data entry part is probably my worst where I fall down a little bit. I'd love to hire a VA to like follow me around and like track what I'm doing all day long, but can't really do that. Yeah, I track um, health metrics. Like I tend to go to the gym most days and I record what I've done there. Um, Sometimes food, it depends. So yeah, things like that as well. I do a little bit as well. Use quite a few to track my business. Obviously, that's something you've got to do when you work for yourself. You've got to be visible across the numbers. So yeah, I really have a lot of fun doing that. It probably takes more time than it should. I'm probably working on the business rather than in the business, if you know what I mean.
Yes, absolutely. I resonate with that. Have you tried the Excel Python integration or fairly new the Excel Gemini integration?
No, I haven't, and I should. Have you?
I have not, and I should.
Yeah, that's good. It's finding time to do like discovery work, isn't it?
Hmm.
When your days are stacked up. But
Yeah,
yeah, there's lots and lots, particularly things like Gemini and other AI things that I want to be getting more hands on with.
absolutely. Yeah, it'll be fun to explore for sure.
Definitely.
One question that I ask all of my guests is around learning. And so,
Mhm.
particularly when you're out there and you're trying to learn something new, what are your go to resources?
I think there's a YouTube video for everything. I always refer back to, I mentioned earlier on the call that I was doing a commerce degree and I had a lot of trouble with one particular stats class. It was just very complex. And I had a really horrible lecturer who I couldn't get. I couldn't understand um, what they were explaining, and I did really badly on the exam. And now when stats questions come up, and I go and quickly just watch a 5 minute YouTube video, I'm like, oh, that's so easy. Why didn't I think to use this back then? Or more realistically, there probably weren't that many videos on YouTube back then but I didn't even think about it. But
Yeah,
there is literally a YouTube video for everything, and there's usually someone who's explained it in a way that is useful for your learning style. So that's a great resource, I think. That people don't tend to. It's thought of as an entertainment destination, I think, for a lot of people, but there's a lot of learning resources there.
absolutely. One around stats that has helped me out is StatQuest with Josh Starmer. Have you
I
seen
have
that
heard of
one?
that. Yes.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah.
Really great
It's such
resource.
it's such a quick one because you just gonna go, oh, what is the I'm not gonna think of something off the top of my head, but how do I make this equation or how do I work this thing out? I just want to jump in and get someone to very clearly explain it to you and then come away from it. So that's all you need some of the time. More recently, of course, like ChatGPT and things like that, because it can I can dumb it down. Like that was too complex. Make it dumber. Explain it like I'm five, but then it literally explains it like you're five. I'm like, no, 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 six.
Yes, I like using that, the explain like I'm five, just because it comes up with like the coolest and funnest
Yeah,
analogies.
it does. Yeah, and that's the thing with learning. There's no one way that everybody learns. Everybody learns in different ways. Some people are visual. Some people learn through storytelling. Some people um, are very good at reading something and totally getting it. For me, I think it's different for different things. I don't necessarily have just one learning style. So I've got to experiment myself and say, what sticks.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Hmm.
So, do you have any final words of encouragement or recommendations for the listeners out there?
I think it's easier said than done to make a shift into the data field, but if you network really well and if you talk to the right people and just validate your assumptions around what you think data working in data will be like, you'll save a lot of hassle. Uh, no industry is the same, by the way, within data. There are industries that treat data very poorly, that are very legacy and very outdated in their approach. Oftentimes, I won't name them, but certain industries will think data is just for reporting. Other industries are super advanced and they'll want data in the front, in the top, in the top tables, being strategic and contributing in a really effective way. So you've got to think about the culture of the place that you're going to and the kind of data environment that exists within it. It's not the same everywhere. It's quite different depending. And then within different businesses as well, go and talk to people who work in data roles in those businesses. Validate whether or not that's the kind of place that you want to go and work for. Yeah, but remember your domain expertise that you're bringing with you is an asset. It's not a liability. Just because you're not a pure data person or you don't have a data science degree, I don't think it really matters. I think if you can show that you are willing to learn or have put in your own effort to learn some of the core basic skills within data, and you bring this amount of extra knowledge and domain expertise and business literacy and stakeholder management skills, you're going to be an asset. You're like gold dust. So go
Yes.
forward with that. Feel confident with that.
I love that. Well, thank you so very much, Tris, for coming on the show. If any of the listeners have any questions for you, where can they find and or follow you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on LinkedIn, Tris J. Burns, and I have a website as well, trisjburns.com. I hope you don't mind me saying, but I also just recently have launched a book club. It's not necessarily related to data, but it's for people who enjoy reading management, business, entrepreneurship, personal development type books. And it's called The Badass Bookshelf. And it's launching in February. So good timing for anyone who is listening.
That is
Join us.
perfect timing. We'll go ahead
Yeah.
and share some more information in the show notes for that, for sure.
Fantastic. That would be great. And Monica, come on.
Will do. Absolutely. Very interested. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you again for coming on the show, Tris. And as always, folks, happy learning. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Data Podcast for Nerds. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you want to transition your career and become a data professional, follow me on LinkedIn for even more tips, tricks, and nerdy fun bits.